Everyone. As everyone is getting logged in, if you could also update your name to include your chapter, that will be really helpful during the discussion. If you're struggling to figure that out, I know sometimes if you're on the phone, or again, if you're on the app, it's kind of difficult to do. So if you also want to drop it in the chat, we can also update that on our end as well. So everyone knows where it's going. It's good to see some faces. How's everyone's day going today? Good. Awesome. All right. Well, I did receive one question, and Chris, you're on the line today. So did you want to go ahead and propose what you had sent over to the group? You are muted. I'm not sure if you're able to unmute. If not, then I will go ahead and propose what the topic that you wanted to discuss as well. All right, so I'll throw this out there. The topic was, how is DEI being incorporated into your chapter and your operations, whether it's at events or just overall?
Can you say that again, Kelly? You said something about you used an acronym. Can you tell me what that is?
Oh, yes. DEI, so diversity, equity, and inclusion. So a lot of chapters have incorporated our overall DEI statement at the chapter level as well, and are doing some initiatives around that. Some have started committees around this specifically, and so just seeing if any other chapters are doing any of these initiatives or doing anything with DEI at events or again, just within operations.
I know the Oregon chapter isn't doing anything, so that I'll just say we haven't done anything in either Oregon chapters.
And Georgia's not either. And I really, honestly, until you just said it, didn't even give it a thought, which is probably something I should have done. So I would love to hear if someone else has a mission statement or something. Yeah, I'd love to hear more about it.
Yeah, I'll have Emily, if you could drop in the link to the chat where our DEI statement is. And Chris, I know with Minnesota, you guys started a committee around this to make sure that the initiative was able to move forward at that chapter level. Did you just want to talk a little bit about kind of maybe how that committee is functioning, how it got started, so that others might want to, again, if they want to take it to their chapters?
Absolutely. So last year, about a year and a half ago, the board for CAI Minnesota formed the DEI committee, and it's been a struggle to get everybody together, but we've been rolling strong for about 6 months, and we have put our pledge up onto our CAI Minnesota website for boards and managers to download, adopt. And we did this based off of the national CAI diversity, equity, and inclusion statement. So we appreciate that the CAI national already had the foundation there. We did change it a little bit for our Minnesota people, but we've been meeting every other month, and for 2024 we're looking at going out into the community and also looking at ourselves, reflecting back on every single event, every single email, everything, to make sure the communications are meeting our expectations. So we do have a law seminar coming up, and we're going through a gray area thinking presentation, which is specifically from our DEI committee. And we're hoping to learn more, but we're always trying to find out, do other chapters have better practices? What are other chapters doing to make sure that all HOA members and all managers and everybody is included on everything? So,
Chris, that's awesome. I have a question. When you said, I really like the fact when you said that you were going through your different programs and communications to make sure that you were checking yourself, basically. Do you have any kind of 5 things it has to meet in order to be connected to our DEI initiative? Or like, how are you as a chapter, not as yourself, checking yourself?
It's still in its infancy stage at CAI Minnesota. Our main goal was to get our board statement out there so boards can have this discussion and managers as well. And right now we are just looking at everything and trying to figure out what's the best way to do this without overbearing on people. We've read and looked at the DEIP research studies. We've been reviewing things to not overdo this as well, because that can also push people away. So it's really it's a challenge. It's a challenge at every meeting. It's a challenge to get it out there. And if there's better practices out there by anybody, we want to hear about it. But otherwise, in the next year, we'll have an update for you on that.
That's great.
That's great. And just some thoughts, some simple ways to, have that inclusion aspect at events is making sure you're on your registration, you're asking the question if people need either assistance, audio, visual, and it doesn't have to be specific. It can be a fill in the blank type of thing, or, do you need it? Yes, no. And if someone does mark yes, then the staff is following up of what that need is. But just again, or dietary, making sure you're asking that question as well. And then the other thing that I know a few of our chapters, and again, most of you are probably already doing, is making sure you're looking at holidays that are taking place. And not just the federal holidays. None of us are holding an event on July 4th. That would not be successful, most likely, right? Everyone wants to be with their friends, their families. But looking outside of just those federally operated holidays when you're going into an event and contracting that, and really taking a look at, are we being inclusive? Are we taking a group of people out by having an event on this date because it's, a holiday that maybe you don't personally recognize, but it doesn't mean that our members aren't recognizing that and feel like, okay, they're not wanting me to be included because of this factor. So some of those are some easy ways to, start to incorporate that specifically in your events. But again, that can be widespread throughout the organization as well.
Kelly, can I just,
Yeah,
it's Lynn from Keystone. If I could just read what we use, I think it might be a little bit helpful to everybody.
great.
We're very mindful of, I'm reading, if that's on my head is this way, of dietary needs, accessibility. We always make sure that we include diverse background pictures at all of our events. The invitation, we watch all the wording on that to include religious holidays. We use welcome badges, name tags. We have modified our sign up for any special needs. And then we also share feedback at all of our events. We have a feedback sheet. So we make sure if we've missed anything that we can capture that feedback if we've offended or, went outside the line in any way.
That's great. That's great to have that open feedback to that post to see, okay, if someone's feeling, that they aren't included or anything, that you're getting that so that moving forward, you can fix that situation. So that's great. That's a great piece to also make sure that you're including.
I would like to piggyback on your holiday comment. That actually arose a couple years ago. Someone did complain like, hey, you're throwing a luncheon on this day. And you're right, we did not even consider that it was a Jewish holiday and a very important one. So that is something that we incorporated a couple years ago. And so I guess we are doing a little DEI. So
Yeah.
makes me feel a little better. But yeah, I highly recommend checking that. Holiday schedule. Most of the other ones we checked kind of fell in like no man's land, like in December, that we were not going to plan events in anyway. But I definitely took that one to heart, because when I kind of like, it would annoy me, if they plan something on, Easter, so that's a good point that you made.
Sarah, I saw you came off mute. Did you want to make a comment?
I was just thinking, like, it is hard. I completely agree with this, and opening up to think about other holidays, other things that we're just not, it's not on the forefront of our mind necessarily. It's so difficult when planning these dates, especially for chapters, and then to even throw another wrench in there is like trying to have chapters work with other chapters that are within that same area. Some of those chapters don't want to work with other chapters, and that's been really difficult, especially when we're just trying to all get these dates lined up. And and then as business partners and managers, and most the time the Cavils aren't a part of many different chapters, but sometimes managers are. And so like you're trying to juggle 2 or 3 different chapters and all these dates, and it just becomes a lot. But I completely agree that it should be done, that we should look at those. But it would be helpful if, like, again, if a state has multiple chapters around, that we're all like maybe having a meeting together. Maybe that could be a requirement where we're looking at dates so that we can all make sure that we're not stepping on each other's toes and things like that. So
No,
That's a
that's
great point, Sarah.
Yeah, I know a couple of our state chapters do that. And again, some do it better than others. And even within those states, again, some chapters communicate better than others with that. And so, yeah, that's a great point for us to look deeper into that as well, because I know we hear that pain point. Speaking to that, this is just a call out to all of you. If you do have any trade show dates for either the rest of this year or even into 2024 that you have booked and scheduled, please send us that information. We have a chapter trade show link on our website. And so we do put them up there. It's very helpful for a lot of our business partners specifically to know, so they start planning out their year with that, because again, we know our business partners, there's a lot of overlap with a lot of the chapters. So again, if you do have that, please send that over to anyone on the chapter relations team, and we'll make sure that we get that up onto that calendar.
Sarah, I'm gonna go back to your thought on the chapters working together. As Kelly said, some are better than others. Some have had a lot of practice. California does a good job of working together. Florida's really trying to work together. It takes a little bit of time. I would suggest, if anybody's struggling with that a little bit, a couple of things. We all feel territorial, right? We especially, I feel like right now, coming, out of COVID, if you will, we're all like, I just got to get my stuff back on track, and may not always be as kind to other people that are also trying to get on track. So, it's coming at it from both staff to staff, but also volunteer to volunteer. So if any of you have, want to connect with another chapter president in your local market, I encourage you to reach out. We have those all listed on our website, that you can reach out to them directly and just say, hey, can I just share the dates? And, hopefully in the future we can work together on that. So that's one suggestion I have there. Has anybody else successfully worked with other chapters that might be able to speak to that piece of it? I know we heard at the CED retreat this week a couple of really good examples of chapters working together on both education and also networking events.
That's what I was going to mention. Our CED tends to reach out to other CEDs, and I think CAI does a really good job of making that network compatible so they can share best practices.
Yeah, absolutely.
I can speak again for Keystone. We do a networking event annually with the New Jersey chapter. Very successful.
Do you feel like it gets more traction because it's jointly planned, Lynn,
Um,
or what do you think makes
You
it
know,
successful?
a lot of the vendors are members of both chapters because of our Pennsylvania, New Jersey. Like Keystone is mostly South Jersey, and the New Jersey chapter is Northern Jersey. So there's a lot of crossover. So honest answer, I think it's just a good networking event for managers for both sides.
Awesome.
Thank you.
And Kelly, if I may jump in more
Yeah,
on the
absolutely.
going back to the DEI, I just didn't want to lose the, collaboration together. With the DEI, both Jennifer and Sarah, you both have mentioned it's a lot. And that is honestly, Emily and I both work with internal and external task forces here on staff and with our membership. And that is the biggest struggle is there are so many things to consider. And it, really encompasses everything we do. So we've kind of taken a step back and said, you know what, we could go down a rabbit hole of race or culture or religion or special needs or any of these things. Let's just pull ourselves out of that and say, we want everybody to feel welcome. So, what are the little things? And even if you take just and do one thing, you're making that one step forward. So, like Jennifer, you said, oh, I didn't even realize we accounted for Jewish holidays. That's great. You did one thing, So, just taking one thing, because if you start to think about all the things you can do, believe me, we've done it. It is so overwhelming, and then you kind of get stuck. So, that's my advice to you. And you also have to see what works for your chapter. Like Jewish holidays are going to be super important to areas of the country that have a high Jewish population. In other parts of the country, maybe not important, So, you kind of got to get to know your membership and see what's important to them as well.
All right. Okay. Now I'd like to open up the floor to everyone on the call. Is there anything else that anyone would like to discuss?
Thing to discuss. If Charlotte, you want to go?
I shared with you guys that
We can't hear you, Charlotte.
Yeah, sorry,
I don't-
your
it's like-
microphone.
it's like-
yeah. Yeah, I think your mic's going in and out a little bit. Sarah, why don't you go ahead while Charlotte's trying to figure out, I think it might just be the microphone. Charlotte, if you want to type it into us, maybe what you want to put, and we can communicate that out as well.
Yeah, so what I wanted to ask about was trying to I really, actually, to be honest, Charlotte's the one that's really that chapter has really elevated my passion to what I'm trying to push. Protecting your CED and doing what you can to protect your employee and creating this culture for an employee. I've been president of a chapter that we had a very established employee, pay for the medical benefits, that you had these employee benefits and a board that really helped. And we did it through a personnel committee. And so we had a very small personnel committee that would go through to, the CD could go there if the board or her president, she just couldn't get a voice. And so this was that way. So I'm trying to work on it with another chapter and I'm struggling because I see the importance of and it doesn't matter the CED. I'm just talking in general, if you have a good person, you want to make sure to protect them. And so I'm struggling because there's, our chapter isn't that big. But yet we do have an employee, and how do we protect this employee? I have some of the board that, because we're small, because they don't, maybe we have, and it's not necessarily about the growth, but I think it's that just small, chapter mentality. It's well, we don't need this, or, the CD should be able to come to their president, or whatever the reason is. I'm kind of getting this pushback with trying to separate again for an employee, and then, you know, our board and all of our processes, and how do we actually, you know, do this for her, and, you know, and implementing, like making sure that these things are, you know, goals and everything like that are driven. It just seems like everything is a little bit more laxy daisy. And I look at it as like, if we lost this person, we would be in a world of hurt. And I know that, like, Charlotte, you know, like their chapter is going through a lot. And I've expressed that. I'm like, I don't want to do this as a board. And that part I'm just like, I'm struggling with, because I'm kind of getting some pushback because it's such a small area, but I know it's not going to stay that way. And I'm a planner and projector. So that's kind of been my struggle. I don't know what to do. I don't know how to really implement this, because I'm getting pushback from, you know, some of the board, president, things like that. Like, they just don't think it might be. And they're actually taking the approach of like, well, let's just do 1099. And I'm like, are you kidding me? That's more reason for a person to leave. Like, you're now really disconnecting. I just feel like they're going backwards, and I'm trying to go forward. And so,
Yeah.
any
Jim,
suggestions or ideas, I would love.
Jim, I saw you came on mute. Did you want to say something?
Yeah, we are very fortunate to have a complete rock star CD, and she's been with us for 15 years now. You know, to the point where I'm a little nervous, because she's really the glue that's holding us all together. So, but it wasn't always that way. And this is my second stint as president. And I remember I think we were at the point where you're at. We were 7-8 years ago when I was president the first time. There were some rocky things going on. We were a much smaller chapter at that time. The pay was frankly criminal, compared to the time when we cost accounted the time. So we worked with National, and I know they do the salary survey, which, you know, I know compensation is just one piece of it. But we use that and realize, oh wow, we're way behind, and you know, we need to shift some funds around and make sure we're competitive from a salary standpoint. And then we also did a formal review and found out, you know, as a board, how many hours are you spending on this? And it shocked us. We actually made an investment sooner than we probably should have in getting some part-time help to assist our CED, because she was working so many hours for such little pay, and we were going to lose her. Now, I will say our CED is still at 1099, and we've mutually agreed that is the relationship we have with her, and she's okay with that. But you know, we every year we do a review, we look at that salary survey, we look at, okay, what sort of hours are you spending? And we ask her, not just at review time, but multiple times throughout the year, what resources do you need to be successful and to have the chapter be successful? And I think that dialogue with the board has done us well. And I know Kelly and Crystal they'll tell you how great our CED is. We're lucky.
You are very lucky, Jim. Crystal, you're on mute. I see your you said something, but you
I was just saying, yes, Jim, we will agree with you. You have an amazing CED, as do many of you on this call, for sure.
Yeah. And just to note about the salary and benefits survey, so we have officially collected the data for this year. We do this survey every 2 years, and we are hoping to have it out to you by the end of September, so at the end of this month, so that you will all have that while you're going through your budgeting for the following year. If you do have any specific questions once you receive that survey, or you need deeper details, please let me know and we can dive deeper into any of the areas or have a discussion if you're not sure where it is. We do provide it in very different ways, so you can really pinpoint it down to your chapter. We do it by region, we do it by chapter size, and we also do it by type. of employee. So is it a direct employee to your chapter, or is it that 1099? Because again, there's those different requirements around that. So again, though, if you do need more information or a deeper dive, please let me know. I love numbers if you haven't been able to tell previously. So please, again, let me know if you want to go deeper into that once that's released. Chris, go ahead.
I'd like to say one thing towards 1099 or employee. It all depends on what they want to make it right. Ours is a 1099. We did have a management company years ago, which cost almost double of what our 1099 does now. But with that said, every board, every chapter president, everybody has a different opinion about who should get paid what. So having the right CED in place and having them compensated fairly is so important. And that's why I'm looking forward to the new edition of your report, because some of our board members, may think, hey, minimum wage is great. And some may go, that's appalling. So whatever it takes to get that CED that's good to stay is what we're all about. And I can only understand how troubling it is for a lot of chapters that don't have the funds coming in, because the right CED can also boost $300,000 in sponsorship. So, and quite frankly, that's what ours has done. So we have to look at that, and it's worth paying a little bit extra to keep somebody that's good.
So much for your guys' help. Oh, I was just going to ask, would it be possible, Kelly or Crystal, to send me the one from 2 years ago so that I can have a basis, and then I'll wait for this new one to come out?
Absolutely.
Of the salary. Okay.
I actually was just typing in the chat, Sarah, a link to the chapter toolkit, which you all have access to. You do need to log in with your CAI credentials. It has a whole bunch of folders. There is one on hiring a chapter executive director that has some resources as well as the salary survey there. So if you're looking for any resources around that topic, I'm not going to say it's all inclusive, but it does give you some good tools. And we're certainly willing to talk with any of you offline if you have a particular circumstance that you're struggling with. Emily, if I may put you on the spot. We've talked a little bit about 1099 versus a direct employee. Do you feel comfortable giving kind of a high level so people understand the difference?
Yeah, I was actually looking for a link really quick to kind of speak off of. So if I can look for that really quick and then come back to it. I was having a hard time finding it. So, but yes, I do in a moment. I think one of the biggest things, and I can kind of talk while I'm looking for it, is you really do need to check with an HR attorney if you're considering a 1099 versus, a direct employee. There are some things like, as far as typically a 1099 employee is hired to do either short-term tasks or very specific tasks. So it would be like maybe they're hired to do your magazine or marketing or something like that. I found some really interesting things doing some research on this, actually, like 1099 employees shouldn't be required to have to attend board meetings or committee meetings, and things like that. So I know many of you want them to be doing that. So to have that direct oversight of them, you're not supposed to have that as a 1099. So just be careful. Because I've seen it backfire on chapters as well. It's not always what they expect. So I'll put that out there. There's a really great chart that I'm going to drop in the chat that has kind of that side-by-side comparison. Is that kind of what you were looking for, Crystal?
Yeah, absolutely. That's perfect.
Okay.
I think just a little bit of those warnings and things to look for, because they have pros and cons for all things. So we want to just be aware of those and see what works. As Chris so eloquently said, what works best for the employee and for the organization.
Yeah. Have any of you gone through that process and tried to look at whether it makes sense for a 1099 or direct employee? I know you have, Chris. You're shaking your head. Yeah. Any others, or if you want to share what that kind of looked like?
We did, and we worked with an attorney, and in our CD's particular situation, her husband has really good health benefits. And actually, if we made her a W-2 and offered health benefits, she wouldn't be eligible for his. So it was just a very particular situation. So those are the types of things like, and that was a really one of the deciding factors. How to establish our contract with our CD. And there are some other things like even so we like to give bonuses, which you have to. There's some here in Missouri. There's actually some laws related to can you actually bonus a CED or a 1099. So we had to work with an attorney on that. So there are a lot of things you got to think about if you do go the 1099 route or W-2. Like we still purchase workers' compensation coverage because while she's a 1099, we're directing her movement, I guess you could call it sometimes, or where she has to be at certain times. And we could be construed as a statutory employer. So we wanted to make sure we had that protection. And we just want to protect her and our other subcontractors if they get hurt. So.
Absolutely. And it's different from state to state. So even if somebody on this call says this is how we did it, it's good information to have, but it is state by state. And I'm looking at Charlotte because California, whew, I wouldn't mess, and Julie, you're on the call too. I wouldn't mess with California HR law for anything. So, you certainly want to make sure you're talking to proper professionals and have an understanding.
And I would say don't pigeonhole yourself in either, if you're like, we're hiring a 1099 and that's it, and then you have a really great person come along that maybe prefers to be a direct employee. I would hate to see you lose that. And I've done a lot of assisting with hiring lately with chapters. And so I would just put that out there too. Either way, maybe don't pigeonhole yourself in.
Yeah. And I also just want to call out as well, there's several chapters who also use a nonprofit association management company, which also has different benefits as well. So if you are going through that process, don't also forget that there is that piece of the industry. And again, like I said, there's different benefits in each of these categories. So just kind of knowing what's out there and what's going to work best for you. All right, great conversation so far, everyone. All right, anyone else have another topic that they would like to throw out? No, I know we're moving into fall. I know there's a couple, fall, larger fall events, such as, I know up here in the where it gets snowy and cold, it's the final golf tournaments are happening for some of the chapters. We've got some legal seminars that are taking place. How are you all feeling about your fall events coming up? Feeling good overall? I see lots of head nods. Yeah. Good. It's also budgeting season. So again, at the both within a lot of our communities and then also within the chapter themselves. How, just thinking about the chapter, how are those discussions going, or are there any concerns that any of you have going into that budgeting process? All right, so just to let you know,
a lot of concerns. I have to imagine others too.
Yeah, go ahead, Julie. What's a concern that you might have?
This is an issue. We're still dealing with the ramifications of bouncing back from the pandemic. Our chapter in particular was really hard hit. We tend to have a lot of multi-chapter business partners. So, funding from them has been lower. We have a lot of homeowner leaders. We're very heavy on that end. They don't provide good revenue. It's great to have them. And when they participate, it's fantastic. We love it. But the bottom line is very difficult for us out here. I don't know if other chapters have been having the same problem, but we also have unfortunately a big debt hanging over us from during the pandemic with a landlord that refused to work with us. And so all of this has been really difficult. On the plus side, our first events coming up, the attendance so far seems pretty good. So we're hopeful that this year may finally be the year that we get people back, that our business partners are back stronger than they have been in the last few years. So I guess I feel hopeful, but still really nervous about what's coming, because so far we're still in the red. We're not running in the black, and that doesn't include a giant debt that we owe to a former landlord, because we don't even have office space anymore. We've gone virtual in order to save that money.
Are any others feeling that, the coming back out and kind of going through that, or any pieces of advice from anyone who went through that and maybe has already come out that other side? Go ahead, Sarah.
Yeah, so our chapter, the Oregon had only one chapter at the time, and then it split off into two. So at that time, it was one chapter. We had a president that we didn't realize. The board just kind of trusted a little bit more than maybe they should have at the time. And, once we realized that we were I think at that time it was like 28,000 in debt, essentially, from CDs that were taken out, or, just things that they took out to pay off stuff. And it was oh my gosh. And this was prior to COVID. So we were kind of what are we going to do to repay these CDs back and all of that? And really what we did, and Crystal and Kelly will be able to speak to it because the chapter won an award on it, but it was the reverse trade show. We immediately that year came up with this idea. We looked at all of our events. And for me, I always like to see where's that break-even point, and then how much more can you actually make on an event. So if your events that you're looking at are only making 1,000 or 2,000 here and there, I'm just throwing out numbers, then maybe you need to think about those events and how do we actually create it to where these events are creating more revenue than the expenses there. But the reverse trade show was it for us. I mean, one, it was the biggest money generating event in one given year on that single day. And what the reverse trade show is that it essentially flip-flopped the business partners. You look at how much time there is for a business partner and a manager, and these business partners want to get to all of the managers. So what we did was we created this incredible value on our managers and asked our managers, hey, we need your help. The chapter needs your help. Please come to this event. And the CED and I went to every single management company before the event to get them to sign up and be on board before it. But our costs were $3,000 to $4,000, and we brought in almost 16 or 17,000. So this one event generated 14 to 15,000 for our chapter in one single year, got us lifted, and then from there we were able to completely get out of this position, and now they're thriving. And so it was just taking a look at the event. What kind of event could you get a lot of leverage for? These business partners, you can sell it. It's hey guys, do you want to get in front of a room full of managers? I mean, when are you ever going to be able to do that? Create a premium for it. I mean, at first we charged $400 or $500 a pop. And now, because we have so much people wanting to come and be in this room, they'll pay more. And that's where you then get it. It's really trying to leverage that, the time of the managers, and really we got them to come for free food and free drinks. I mean, it was kind of let's feed you, get you out here. We know we appreciate your time, but it was about trying to create one event that was a big money generator for us. And that's how we got out of it.
That's great, Sarah. And just to let you know, we did do a knowledge series session on that with your CED, Laura. And so I went ahead and I dropped that link in the chat if you wanted to go back and watch that. And then we also have additional resources that Laura sent to us in the toolkit that Crystal referenced. So again, if you're interested in learning more about that, or if maybe that would work for any of your chapters, again, I think this is a great resource for you to take a look at.
Kelly, this is Linda from Washington. We have an amazing new CED. Thank you, ladies, very much for your help at headquarters. Oh my gosh. We had a CED that had been with us for over 20 years. So it was time to kind of shake it up. She did an amazing job. Don't get me wrong. She retired. So we found this young whippersnapper who has come in with all these incredible ideas. We did a reverse trade show and it was very successful. Like Sarah said, it was really very, very popular. But what we've done this year or for next year is we're going to combine two events into one. And it was a hard sell on the two different committees that each took their event. We combined Law Day with Made for Managers Day, and we combined it into one conference. And I'm, for the life of me, can't think of what we're calling it next year. But so far, the attendance and the enthusiasm about that has finally grown, and people are very excited. Business partners are excited because it's one booth instead of two booths at two different events. They're going to get their eyes in front of more people. And we're going to also advertise it for homeowners as well. There'll be a homeowner track and the Law Day and Made for Managers Day. And then we're going to call normally our CAA Day, CA Day is going to now be an annual conference. And that's going to include a whole lot of other dynamics, just pulling from different parts of our association and combining them into one. And the main reason we're doing this is we've also done a membership drive. And Kyle wants to hire another staff person. And so he is gung-ho to get these attendances up and to get us more members so that is possible for him. And it looks like we're going to get there. So we're very excited here in Washington. And I can't thank CAI enough for that. You guys walked us through it and it was incredible. Can I say one more thing about CEDs?
Absolutely.
I think when we were talking about it earlier, it's important not only that we pay them right and treat them right, but I think to be fair, we have to evaluate them right. And by doing a really good evaluation, you get to see what they're thinking. I mean, I like to do a two-way evaluation when I'm president. I hope that's what I'm going to be able to do next year is get their feedback on the board and get the board feedback on the executive director and see where improvements can be made. But I think you can't really set a good bonus or new salary without having that evaluation. And what I always tell people is you can't evaluate on what they don't know you're evaluating them on. So be sure that you're clear about that in the beginning so that they know what they should be working towards as they're doing it. Okay, I'll shut up. I could go on for hours.
Thank you, Linda. All right, we have about 15 minutes or so left, and I just want to make sure that everyone gets an opportunity to, again, throw anything out that you want to discuss. So I'm just going to open that up again one more time if there's anything else anyone wants to throw out to the group.
Sarah from Oregon, about your reverse trade show. How much did you charge the business partners to attend that? I think I heard you, but I didn't hear you.
Yeah, so the first year, I think we charged $400, and
okay.
That was for two people. And then if you wanted, because some of the business partners, like the contractors, things like that, they would maybe want to bring more people. Then what we did was we charged additional amounts. So I think it was like another $200 for every additional person that wanted to come. Since then, we've really increased it. I think that it's like $500 or $600. And if you are not a member of the chapter, then we really, like some of the national sponsors will want to come or something. I mean, I think they're charged like $800 or $900. It's a lot, but it's, when you think about what they get in that room, that's what you're selling. And
Absolutely.
Oftentimes they'll pay for it. And so Yeah, that's what we ended up charging. And then you
Okay.
also, so some of the other things that we did was we did other sponsorships through it. So swag sponsor was a really big one. The business partners that come can't bring anything. Like they can't bring, binders and things to hand out, but a swag sponsor can. And so when you have so many swag sponsors and they get to put the things on the table, now you can have like a $600 swag sponsor and you could maybe have 3 of those. And then there you go. You've just made yourself another few thousand. So we also looked at the sponsorships there. You had the dessert, the food sponsor, a few of those other ones.
Yeah.
And then it really created this huge amount of revenue. And we did it in a space that we knew, like, again, we do it at luncheons and they only charge, say total of 3,000, and that's with some food and beverage and stuff like that. So the expenses were really incredibly low.
Very cool. I really, as a former business partner, I'm a homeowner leader now, but I know I'm in other associations that offer that. And I pay the $500 or whatever the cost may be. So, now you said you don't allow them to bring swag or binders. What can they do they just bring their cards or?
Yep, they just bring their cards and they get to
Okay.
pitch themselves. And so then the rest of them that, they can bring some of the stuff. But yeah, they just bring cards and it's like a speed session. We do it for 5 minutes or so. We've adjusted the time to go up to 7 and we do a break in between so that the managers can go to the bathroom and get food. That's one of the downsides is that the managers have to sit at the table and they're tired. I mean, they're incredibly
They
tired.
should see how it feels sometimes. They should see how it feels sometimes. Like, so.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah. That's awesome. I really like that. Yeah. Thank you for sharing.
The other thing I would suggest, and this would be for anybody or Julie, an idea that I had, and I'm using it for my small chapter on Oregon, is leverage the national sponsors. Here's the thing. They have money and they have a marketing budget. Start telling them that you need your help. This chapter needs your help. You can go support other chapters, that's great, but this one really needs your help. And as a national sponsor, I can throw out the insurance companies and, go ask them. You have national sponsors say, hey, I need your help. Can you please just sponsor an item that doesn't, they don't have to come to events. You can do like a newsletter sponsor or something like that. But get the national sponsors to try to give you sponsorship so that you can try to keep yourself afloat with then selling to some of the other ones. So that would be another idea that I have.
And this is the first that I really heard about this. Have other chapters been able to get national sponsorship?
I did for Cork. I did for Cork. So we have a newsletter and I created ad spaces within the newsletter. And so then what I did just to fill that, I could get business partners and we did, but I also then went to some of the national sponsors and said, hey, I need help. What could you sponsor with? And the newsletter was a great idea because they didn't have to come to an event, but hey, a newsletter ad was $600. So that was really, an incredible thing for us. And so when you think about what sponsorships you could leverage that don't require them to be there, that's how you can then sell potentially some of those much easier than having to figure out what business partner is going to actually attach themselves to that.